Wow, would you look at that? I'm really uploading quite a lot recently. Today we're going to be taking a look at Chained Beasts after I played its honestly quite extensive demo not too long ago as a part of the Steam Next Fest that ended this week, or last week, it was one of them. I've been checking out some good multiplayer games and Chained Beasts is the third one so far. I'll leave a link to the two games I've covered this week below. They're pretty good. I would recommend you go look at them. I think one of them's even out today, so go check out those. I've left Chained Beasts until last because it's actually doing the rounds right now as something very exciting. Plenty of big figures have been giving this game a lot of praise, and I can see why, because it's got some new and fresh core ideas and does those ideas really well. You've not seen anything exactly like Chained Beasts before. It's a character-based roguelike, sure, but you really do have to play this with friends, because the core concept of the game is that you are physically chained to the other players in the game, and you can only move in relation to where they are and what they're doing. There's a limit to your freedom, and then you get put in an arena with enemies attacking you from all sides and plenty of obstacles in the arena to hinder your movement and take away your health. I need you to play Chained Beasts because this demo is so interesting that it's basically a lock that this game is going to do very well when it launches, and I want you to be there. It's a very well made game and I would recommend a lot of parts of it. It has a design philosophy that will interest a lot of people, even if I'm not really the type of person this game is for, but we'll get to that. Go download the demo now and listen to this as it goes. Or don't, that was a bit bossy here. You do not have to listen to me when I say that. I'm just going to tell you about it. Now, there are a few different systems that are implemented very well that make this game tick. Let's start with the character selection. There are like 7 or 8 characters in the game, and 5 of those were playable in this demo. Now, what separates these characters is that they all have a different passive, and these influence how your character plays and how you yourself play in ways that you feel on a small scale. But each character does something significant enough to mean that you both want to try a few of them and will also probably find one that feels useful to how you like to play. I liked the character that moved faster and consumed less stamina when you were dodge rolling, but I also tried one that does more damage with throwables, and then this other character that has less health but does more damage. And this game does what I like in a lot of character-based roguelikes especially, and that is that you can level these characters up. So in the demo at least, leveling up doesn't do the usual thing games like this do, where you unlock new abilities or perks or even more customizations, but what it does do is affect how your character will play, I think. I only got to see one level up after 2 games of one of my friends playing the same character. His character was this rhino that would take less damage and would make shields have double health. After he leveled up, he unlocked the ability to equip a new passive. I can't find the exact footage for this passive, but it did something like 50% extra stun duration when you hit an enemy, which I think replaced the 30% damage reduction the base character had. To be honest, this sounded way worse than the character's base passive, so he didn't actually use it in our next run. And even if it replaced that shields last twice as long thing, it still would have been less useful. But still, new things do open up by playing the same characters and leveling them up. It's almost like each new version of a character you unlock is a new character in itself, because they change seemingly a lot and also take up a new slot on the character select screen. Once you've got a character, you then head into an actual run of the game, which are really, one of a kind. The core combat loop of this game is that your weapons will be constantly spawning and you'll be switching things out and picking things up a lot, because you get extra points for sort of having variety in your weapons that you're using. In your gladiator arena, you're going to be finding swords and maces and spears and bows and clubs, so many things, which then you can pick up and use to fight with by using a simple basic attack swing, or you can also charge the hit up for more damage. You also have an option to throw things like your weapons or pots around the arena for some nice ranged damage, which is a nice option and you will be using that option in combat. You also get a dodge roll, which is very useful, especially for when your movement is completely screwed up and you cannot move in the right direction because you're being pulled one way by someone else. The combat itself is simple, but that works because your mind is being pulled in all different directions by enemy placements, and how to fight those enemies with the space you have. And having that ranged option along with the basic melee attacks makes combat quite fun and gives you that balance of chucking things away if you want to swap weapons, amidst being forced to pick up other things when you're actually using items that can break themselves, like the wooden clubs or shields. And you're really forced into this because the one super long-ranged weapon in the game, the bow, only lets you fire 3 arrows before it runs out. The enemies are pretty good too. We kept seeing new ones with each run we did on the ladder of difficulties that you periodically unlock by beating runs. A good amount of the enemies sort of reminds you of the player. You have the ones with shields, ones with bows, ones with swords, ones that have loads of armor, big heavy people. But we did see other ones pop up, like these fire mages on one of the higher difficulties, and you would be fighting these enemies in arenas that did feel quite varied. We kept seeing new versions of these arenas in terms of different trap placements, pillars that would break up space, and ways you would be connected to each other, like a wheel you were all attached to at different points that would spin when you're moving around. So you'd have to try and coordinate with like who wants to go at the top of the map, who wants to go at the bottom. If if anyone can grab the guy on the right. And there's more ways you can be attached as well. It was quite fun seeing what you'd load into. I never got bored of the space I was fighting in, and I think they did a good job of keeping the level design of these arenas fresh. However, as the runs went on, I did start to feel the combat getting a bit stale. The base combat kit is fine with its charged attacks and throws, it feels good, but it never evolves past that. Part of the fun of combat in roguelike games is upgrading yourself, getting stronger, and aside from the minor upgrades you get when leveling up between rounds, you don't really progress. The goal of this game isn't to have these sprawling combat kits and detailed upgrade paths that you take towards different builds, which is fine, that's totally cool, it's not what it's going for, but the combat does overstay its welcome in terms of what I play these games for. The control scheme and combat kit is extremely similar to other top-down action roguelikes, but the game doesn't have as good of a progression system that those games have, so I'm just gonna prefer playing those even if the chain gimmick is great and the arenas are great. There may be more in the full game I'm not seeing, but I didn't really get a sense from the demo that this was the type of game where you'd unlock more moves or add quirks to your existing ones, because there isn't really a way to build your character, it's just straight up slashing and punching away at the hordes of enemies, which does work and it will work for a lot of people, but it's not the sort of combat environment that will keep me interested for as many hours as some other games might. What they have got in the game is well made. Combat is punchy and meaty and satisfying. It's just not much different happens and it does start to feel repetitive. Again, maybe they're holding some systems back for the full game, but those are my thoughts on what I played. And while Chained Beasts doesn't quite have that progression in side runs that I enjoy, it does do something that's very interesting, and I don't think I've played with a system quite like this game's health management. So obviously in your fights you will be taking damage, and in this game you don't get health drops or, you know, rooms where you can take a break and heal up. Oh no, the currency these whole ones revolve around is your health, and it truly is a currency more than how other roguelikes treat health. Each round you will be given options of potions you can drink that will restore any health you lost before the next fight, and pretty much all of these potions will make your character worse, cripple you, make the game harder to play as a trade-off for taking damage. To get your health back, this game will make you choose to go blind, to go insane and see enemies that don't exist, to swap your combat buttons around periodically and make you press the wrong things. Everything under the sun that will make it harder to do what you need to do most, survive. Of course, if you don't want to take any potions, you don't have to. You can carry on with the health you have, but in the chaos of being dragged around by your friends, who can say you won't take lethal damage in the next fight? So your goal is to take as minimal damage as possible to make sure you don't have to make your whole game worse as you play it. But that's far from simple when you've got a chain attached to you. There is one little tweak I'd make though, like the threat of death isn't that large because when you do die, you sort of just fall onto the ground, and from there the game actually lets you keep throwing things at enemies, and because the whole floor is things you can throw eventually, death just doesn't matter that much sometimes unless you're all doing bad. Like, I've had times where I'm living and my two friends are just chucking everything at the enemies, and they could be doing more damage than me, to be honest, because they're invincible. You can't get killed again when you're already down. So they would just have like an unstoppable ballista of things being thrown at the enemies. So like theoretically I could just run around the arena not getting hit and they could just kill everything for me, which does feel a little bit crazy. Like, the damage potential you could do while dead on the ground was a bit much. I would like to see maybe a secondary health bar that you can get killed by when you're down, although there's no real way to avoid damage when you're down. You're very slow. It needs something to make sure that like dying is actually a consequence, because you don't really lose much by dying. You actually just sort of gain, you know, an invincible teammate with a gun. So I think that needs a bit of changing there. Aside from that, this core system of degrading yourself is great, and while it does seem to go against what I have said before about wanting combat kit upgrades, I do think you could have both. We do sort of have both in the way that you can also make an upgrade selection in between each round after you drink your potions. You'll essentially be given something beneficial that you can then select for your character, and then you'll decide if you want that or another option that anyone in the group can take as well. So for the three of us, we had 4 different upgrades on offer each round, one given to each of us and one in the communal pot, which you could shuffle around upgrades and sort of see who wants what. The upgrades themselves were fine. I didn't really feel their effects every time, but they were normally okay. For the most part being niche effects that would proc sometimes if you did specific things, like your next attack being a critical hit if you killed an enemy with a throwable. These upgrades for the most part weren't that exciting, and it's here that I wish we could have chosen more influential upgrades that really amplify our playstyle. Some of these upgrades do that, but I want bigger swings from these things, core ideas that you can devote yourself to, and not just things that will come in handy every so often. It would also be nice to have some more options, because you're kind of forced forced into one thing most of the time. With enough luck, you could sort of make some semblance of a build, like a crit build or a build that increases your strength under certain conditions, but you'd really have to luck out on getting something complete with a lot of synergy. Something that never really happened for us, apart from when we would get a duplicate upgrade and that would sort of feel like there was something building up. Every so often you'd run into a shop between rounds, and this is where the real game-changing stuff could be purchased. You have this category of items called passives, and we would always buy these because they would always have a big effect on us, like the potions in between rounds healing more, which would save us from choosing some of the more horrible effects, because the potions would heal more the worse the effect was. You could also buy things that would affect you in the round, like equipment that did different things if you wore them that were generally useful, but it was a big commitment because only one person could use each piece of equipment, and it took away from being able to buy the passives that would support the whole team, and generally were stronger bonuses anyway. You can also buy weapons, but because this game encourages you to cycle between a lot of weapons in the fights with, you know, how brittle some of them are and how the scoring works in between rounds with your friends, with that design philosophy, the game has made these weapons only limited use in the shop. They did sort of have the combat kit upgrade effects I was talking about before, but again, being limited use, costing money you could be spending on something else, and only being usable by one person made them a really hard sell, and so these cool and game-affecting bonuses like a sword that sets enemies on fire were never actually bought and used. The game's not designed around permanent upgrades at all, you know, permanent in the runs, which is cool. It's awesome that there's another angle being looked at with a roguelike, and that brawly use anything you see combat style is definitely a fresh take. The game shouldn't change itself because using more permanent upgrades is not a thing that would really suit the game. Chained Beasts has a vision, and I like that vision a lot. It's just not sticking with me and my taste as much as it definitely will for other people, because the health potion system is remarkable and hilarious. Like, some of the stuff that we were getting was really funny. The arena variety is awesome. Gambling your upgrade stats with weightlifting in between rounds is a very engaging way to get your health and damage stats up. Health and damage stats up. And the chain and how that affects fights is such a solid core. Like the final boss, the only boss that was in this demo, if it went over your chain, it's on a horse, if it rode over the chain, it would pull that chain with it and you'd all fall over. Chained Beasts just doesn't have quite enough run identity for me, because it doesn't feel like much is being added to my character in each run, and I probably could beat that final boss I mentioned immediately upon starting the first round. Instead, it's a game about survival, about surviving the waves, and about how well you can play under difficult conditions with your character getting worse overall throughout the run. And there are some systems really bolstering that experience. It's a well-made game for what it does. I'm just a player who enjoys getting stronger and not just surviving. Chained Beasts is impressive. It does a lot of good and not really much bad at all. It's just that the good bits aren't really my thing, where I know they will be a lot of other people's thing. I think this game is definitely worth experiencing just for the survival systems and seeing how long you can stay afloat through the game's progressive difficulties. But I didn't find the build cohesion in the game to be that strong, so once you have the basics down, you've pretty much solved the game. Granted, I didn't play through every difficulty, but we did get through like the first 4 without dying. We didn't try the 5th one. I would recommend Chained Beasts, and I hope the attention it's got already grows even more, because it's making some damn interesting moves. The game comes out this year, 2026, with no specific release date just yet, but I will keep you posted. Thank you for listening to these early impressions, and I will see you soon.